Going to college and working full time and picking computer science as a major is most definitely playing on a higher difficulty setting. Hello, guys. Today we're going to talk about how to do college full time and work full time, aka 40 to 50 hours a week. So, just to give you guys a little context, I worked, I would say, about like 80% of my degree. I was working between 40 to 50 hours the whole time. I know it's not the usual, and I definitely worked more than I would say most people in my major that I knew at the time. So I really struggled. And if this is your choice as well, if you are also thinking about going to school, but you would need to keep your job for personal reasons or financial reasons or for whatever reason specific you're going to keep your job, I'm going to give you my advice from somebody who just graduated while working full time. So I want to start by saying that this is really hard. And there was definitely a lot of sacrifice involved in this decision. I definitely do not think it's a decision you should make lightly because it's a commitment between 4 to 5 years that you're going to be living like this. So if it makes sense for you, it makes sense for you. And if it makes sense for you, here's how. So number one, time management is key. You cannot survive this unless you manage your time very well. So you have to understand that CS is not a traditional major. And what I mean by that is it's incredibly project based, or at least a lot of my professors interpret it that way. It may not be the experience for you, it may be the experience for last semester, but not this semester. Things are always changing. But you have to understand that when you embark on a project, it's not like an essay, like, oh, I'm going to write 2 pages today, I'm going to write 2 pages tomorrow. No, you could be there debugging for days. I've had projects where I've been debugging for days. I've had personal projects where I estimated the time for something I was completely wrong. Even in the industry, time estimations are a huge issue. You don't know how long something takes until you're actually doing it. And perhaps you came with a bad idea like in step 3, and then suddenly you have to fix it in step 7, and then you have to go back and redo things, reframe things. So that's not the case for all assignments, especially in the beginning. But as you move on later on, you're going to find the projects get more complicated, and when they're more complicated, debugging gets a lot harder. So definitely you have to play with that and you have to come in with the understanding that you don't know how long something's going to take you. It's not like an essay where you can say, well, I can probably, plan, get a couple paragraphs in, spend X amount of your research. It is not like that. Once you start, and then you finish what it's working. And a lot of your assignments are graded on completion. So the code has to work. Like there's no, oh, I did halfway, I get half credit. No, like it has to run for you to get your points, and it's gonna run at some point, but you don't really know when exactly it's going to run. Okay, so I'm probably going to make a deeper dive video into this. Number two, what is the right job? Obviously, what jobs are available at the time that you're in college is not the ripest picking, especially if you happen to be in a recession. So you may be able just to take what you can, but I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of how I frame it. So not every job works for this major. So for example, if you have really late nights, like at the time right before class, and you're gonna walk into class like super sleep deprived on a final, probably not gonna work super well for you. So I just want you to know that if you're gonna work 40 to 50 hours, it has to be the right job. Not every job will work for this. That's simply not true. Maybe if you stretch it out over a longer time, if it's like a really heavy season at work, you just fail a class a semester and you try again another semester. But it doesn't work for every single job. It has to be the right job. And here's how to think about the job. Like, does your job leave you completely drained? Like after you're working hour shift and you have the rest of your day, are you drained? Like drained beyond recognition, like you cannot think, then you have to understand that that's a completely no study day. So perhaps you get really drained, but then you have a couple days off, you work at 4-3, and then that works. But let's say you're not getting consistent time off, so like you're not getting consistent weekends, you're not getting consistent like getting off shift on time. When are you going to study? When are you going to do the assignment? These things have to get done, and they take time, and they also take mental energy, and you just having to be like able to absorb information. And I know many times after work, I'm just not able to do that. Like, I'm just so mentally drained that I can't do it. So you have to have consistent time off, and you have to have consistent time off where your brain is working. And then that's not every job. Not every job is equally demanding or equally draining. So that's something you have to come in really understanding. Okay, you are eventually going to need help. You're eventually going to need a tutor. You're eventually going to need like somebody to talk to you over a project. You may eventually need to go to office hours, and if your work schedule is completely not aligned with that, maybe you'll never actually get to form a relationship with your professor, which, you know, some people don't, and that's okay. You network in a different way, because the schedule just doesn't align with the professor. So if your job is very difficult to move around, for these kind of things, this is going to make it harder. So when you have a job with a set schedule, like you can predict how much time off you're going to get in a week or in a week, because a period of 2 weeks doesn't really work that way because assignments are kind of due most of the time every week. If you have a set schedule, that's better. If you have a set schedule that also lines up where when tutors are available, that's even better. A set schedule and time off you can take to go to networking events, or that it also lines up with networking events in your area, that's even better. So if you're going to, you know, keep working full time while you go to school, I would really encourage you to think about if the job that you're thinking of doing it with would be better. Perhaps it would be better to, you know, move towards a role that's more put together with your college schedule before doing this. At the beginning, if you're taking some like general ed classes, maybe this won't be that hard, but as you get more into the harder classes of your major, it's going to get exponentially harder. So perhaps it's worth it to really explore your options to see if there's any other option that could be a better fit for this. Which, you know, it's not the situation for everybody, but if it is the situation, I encourage you to think about, hey, when am I going to get a tutor? Hey, when am I going to go to office hours? Hey, I'm going to have brain power for these things. So think about all of that. Okay, the third thing. You need to lower your expectations. So it is possible to work full time and to go to school full time. It is possible. You're not the first one to do it. I'm not the first one to do it. But everything else in your life takes a huge hit. I will be the first to admit that my friendships and my personal relationships deeply suffered while I was doing this. I was very drained. I didn't have a lot to pour into my relationships. I barely hung out with a lot of people that I really wish I would hang out with more. And that was the sacrifice that I made. So I need you to lower the expectations of everything else. Are you going to be able to keep a workout schedule? Maybe. Depends on like the rest of your life. So I just want you to know that the rest of your life is going to take a significant hit, because when you work, when you get off work, you handle the rest of your life. So you may find that if you need to run errands, it may take weeks because you just had to dedicate a day to the assignment. And by the time you're done with the assignment, you can no longer run the errands. So I just want you to know that your hobbies are probably going to take a huge hit. Friendships, probably too. Your family as well. So if you're kind of person that has like a high demand in terms of family and friends, then maybe this isn't for you. I know that I definitely missed out on a lot of family events. I definitely missed out on being really present for my family. So if your family is a high demand situation or a medium demand situation, it's gonna get hard. And there's no shame in having a high demand family or a medium demand family. But I just wanted to let you know that doing this plus the family obligations is gonna get really hard. Like, you need to dedicate time to this. You need to give like mental time to the mental load of this. So I just want you to know that the rest of your life is gonna suffer while you do this. Okay. 4, you need to figure out a tutoring solution. There will come a time when you will need help. It will happen. It happens to everybody. So one option is that you build relationships with your classmates through clubs and group chats, and then you can kind of go to them for help. You could also try the professor office hours. I found that doesn't really work most of the time, but it doesn't work the same for everybody. Number two is to line up your schedule with the university resources. So for example, they offer tutoring for this class Tuesdays from 2 to 4, or Thursdays or Fridays from 2 to 4. And if you're able to like schedule your work so that it doesn't line up with those times, in case you need help, you can actually go get help. That is helpful. But that was not the case for me in my work schedule, so I never actually got to use those resources. You could also try AI. I'm curious to see how this is going to develop. As we all know, the landscape is changing very, very quickly. So when I was really struggling with projects, it just wasn't there. So maybe you can like hook up an agentic AI to your assignment, and they can help, like the AI can help guide you through it. But in my experience, based on the complexity of the project, you really hit a wall really quickly, and then you're debugging for hours, and it's like this crazy loop of things that don't work, and things that you increasingly don't understand, because AI doesn't match their answers to your understanding. So then you're trying to solve something you've never seen before, especially in the beginning, that it gets kind of senseless and complicated, and you're just gonna struggle more for if you would have taken a different approach, you would have struggled less. So I'm unsure how AI is going to develop. I'm unsure how professors are going to like edit their assignments to make them AI proof, or if they're going to lean into like having you work with the AI to help the understanding. I don't really know what's going to happen semester to semester. And this video, yeah, it's kind of static. I can't change it semester to semester based on the trends, but you should think about your assignments and the fact that AI is not an infallible solution for when you need help. Another option is mentor.io. I have very much used them in my time of need. I met some really great mentors there. I will say the cost barrier is definitely there. I paid usually like $100 per hour for a tutor, but then again, like I needed the assignment done in 6 hours. I was stuck. There were no tutors available. My classmates didn't know what was going on. So I needed the help, and I needed it now because I was going to start this assignment, because it was worth the grade. So it was worth it for me at the time to pay the premium for an on-demand tutor that knew what was up. But I understand that that's not necessarily accessible for everybody. And one of the reasons why I was able to do it is because I have my full-time job, that I could do the on-demand tutoring, and my full-time job was why I needed the on-time tutoring, because I could have just used the free tutoring if it was for free, but it wasn't free because I was working. So you start to see the like trade-offs that you have to make. And it's not like I would spend them on, I would have to get pay $100 an hour all the time. It's just like in very specific projects that I was really struggling and I really needed some assistance, and I was not able to get anywhere else. Okay, so number 5. Something I deeply believe is if people tell you a class is hard, just believe them. Like, just believe what people say. Talk to people and get a feel for the professor, get a feel for the class. And make sure that you're listening to people when they tell you that it's going to be hard, because they're not lying to you. They went through it, they suffered it. Don't take them all at the same time. I kind of used to do a special mix. I had a minor that was really writing based. So I would do 2 writing classes, and then I would do 2 CS classes, and that was an okay pace for me. So I would suggest that you also, if there's something else you're interested in your minor, that you mix in your minor classes with your CS classes. And if you have a hard CS class, just take the one class and mix it with other classes. If you're in the early beginning of college, save your electives. Please, please, please save your electives that are, yes, save them. So that when you have the hard classes, you can mix in your electives, and so your class load for the whole semester isn't crazy. Later on, you may like end up needing 3 hard classes and you just want to graduate, so like you just, kind of swallow the pill that semester. But try not to swallow the pill every semester. And if you can space out the difficult classes, space them out, because it gets really overwhelming very quickly. If you want to work in the industry, you have to plan for it, you have to schedule it, and you have to make it a priority. Okay, so let's say you're in a big metropolis that has some consistent tech events and has at least a minimum tech scene. Usually these events happen on a monthly, 2-month basis. It's like May tech event, summer tech event, unless it's like somebody's coming into town and that's why they're doing the second event. So you can usually kind of predict when they do it. They usually do it at the same spot. Like the organizers usually friends with the venue, and they just keep kind of going back to the same spot. So if you know this is gonna happen this month, you should plan your week around that if you're trying to make it there. So like, hey, if it's on Wednesday after like 5 p.m., then you know that if you had plans to study on Wednesday, then do it on Sunday before so that it can still get done throughout the week. And you kind of can fit in the networking. I really struggled because the networking events were on the other side of town and traffic was really bad. So I definitely had to plan very hard, like get to work earlier so I could leave earlier. So I could be stuck in traffic earlier so that I could make it to some reasonable time for the event. Um, that was my struggle for sure, but I understand not everybody has the same traffic constraints and the meetups kind of go in different times in different places. So if you're in a dead zone, then you have two options. You can either take your networking online, so on LinkedIn, build products, online hackathons, that kind of thing, or you can budget out to go to conferences 1 to 3 times a year and get your in-person networking there. That's definitely costlier and less accessible, but if you're set that you want to work in this field, those conferences can really be a boost to your networking. You can meet somebody and learn a lot of things in the conferences. Not all conferences are created equal, but if you get a chance, budget for the conference. Sometimes you can also get sponsorships for the conference, scholarships. It really depends on what's going on. But I'm not gonna make this a like how to hack conferences video because that's gonna be a later video. Okay, so you have to plan your semester with like the flow of the semester in mind, and you have to line it up with your work schedule unless you really want to suffer. Okay, so what do I mean by the semester? So in the beginning of the semester, you're probably gonna have more theoretical assignments. And you have more time, and then our midterms, that's gonna be a lot more intense since you have to be ready by a certain date. And then in the last part of the semester, all your assignments are due, or at least your big projects are usually due around this time. So, for example, if you know your big project is due and you know like a heavy work schedule is gonna come up, I would suggest you do it before the heavy work schedule. Um, but sometimes you need what you learned in class to finish the project, so you just kind of have to do it at the end. And then if your work schedule is busy at the end, that can make it really, really difficult. Don't like blame yourself if both of these things combine and you actually can't do the project and you fail the class. It happens. You kind of have to accept that your success may be directly correlated to something outside of your control at work. So you just have to take the L when you hit the L. But you kind of have to come in understanding that risk. That you may fail classes because your work schedule got busy. It happens. You keep trying and you'll eventually get to the goal of graduating. So that's why I say go with the flows. For example, if you wanna go to birthdays, try to go to the birthdays that aren't exactly when your midterms are. I definitely missed a lot of outings for midterm or final. So you kind of have to flow with the semester. So my suggestion is that when your semester is over, your last final is over, you have pre-planned outings so that all the things in your life that haven't gotten attention can finally get some attention when the semester's off. I would also suggest like at the beginning of the semester, usually the assignments are pretty light in the beginning. You can also pay attention to the rest of your life. But then eventually once I would say like a month into the semester, that's kind of it, like that's kind of the line where you have to stop and be like, no, I have to concentrate on class for the rest of the semester. But you kind of have that little breathing room in between semesters, or if you take summer semester off. So you have to plan your semester with the flow of your work. So if you know finals line up with like a really busy time, then pre-study for your finals or get a lot more studying done, the assignments done beforehand, so that when you have less energy, you have less to do. But you have to feel out the flow of both things, which is why I say the right job is important, because if you can't predict the flow of work, how are you gonna really like predict the flow assignments? Because perhaps one day you just sleep 4 hours to get this done so that later on it doesn't have to get done. But if you can't predict the flow of work, how are you gonna do this math for yourself? You see, it gets really difficult. Okay. And you need to understand how you need to study. So for example, if the class is really theoretical and the test is going to be a lot of definitions and understanding and reading code, that's easier to schedule because you know you have to study, you have to go to the textbooks, maybe watch a couple lectures. If the test is theoretical, then great. You can treat it as a normal class, block out study time, quiz yourself. That works. If the class is project based, know that you don't know how long it's going to take you to solve this problem, right? Computer science is about solving problems. So how long is it going to take you to solve this problem? Unknown. How long are you going to be debugging? I don't know. I don't know how long I take debugging. I don't know how long you're going to take debugging. Nobody knows how long it's going to take you to finish it. So you just kind of have to approach it with that sense of like, hey, this is a start, but the end is where it is. So it's important for you to understand like what kind of class is this and how you have to structure the study time for it. Okay, take breaks because burnout is so real. When I tell you that the rest of your life is on hold, even yourself is on hold, your sleeping schedule is on hold, your stress management is on hold. So that's why I recommend taking serious breaks and recovering with the rest of your life. So sometimes taking lighter classes a semester so you can breathe a little more and then going back into it, or taking the whole summer semester off, even if you could take classes. Or sometimes you just need a hard stop and reset, so you take a whole semester off. Don't feel ashamed if it's not like the clean cut path that's usual. It kind of has to flow with you, and you have to be able to do it. And if you don't want to give up, not being burnt out is a great way not to give up. So really like pay attention to yourself and say like, when am I getting overwhelmed beyond reason? And you may want to take a break there, but you really need to pay attention to yourself. And see, like I took certain summers off, and I could have graduated earlier. But I was so burnt out. Like the rest of my life really needed attention, and I'm really glad I was able to give it the attention that it needed. So that's why I'm telling you that you have to pay attention to yourself. You have to pay attention to how crazy everything's getting and how you're leaving everything behind, like the rest of your life, your hobbies, your friends, your family, to pursue this goal. And sometimes those parts of your life need attention. So you just have to stop school, because school, like next semester, will be there as well. You can always come back to it, but the rest of your life doesn't necessarily have to be waiting for you to come back to it. So balance it out. You can achieve your goal. You don't have to sacrifice your entire finances to go to school. But if you choose to work full time while going to school full time and do a major as difficult as computer science, I just want you to be aware of the reality that you're stepping into, because it's no joke, and the sacrifices are real, and the logistics of the problem are very real as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got something out of it. In future videos, I will go over exactly the experience of working and how I picked each job and why it worked and why it didn't. And I will go more in depth on some other topics. But thanks a lot for watching this video, and bye!